Welcome to the Ideas on Stage podcast, your regular insight into leadership communication. Hi, everybody. Well, I'm here today with Garr Reynolds. Now, for those of you who've been following our podcast since the beginning, you probably know Garr. He was the special guest in our very first episode. And he's the author of Presentation Zen Design, The Naked Presenter, and an absolutely world-renowned specialist in presentation skills. And he's been a good friend to me and to Ideas on Stage ever since we started back in 2010. So Garr, it's fantastic to see you again. And what the hell made you want to come back on our podcast?
Well, so much fun the first time.
So Garr, last time on the podcast, we were here to be talking about Presentation Zen 3rd edition. So that was your latest book. Today, we're actually here to talk about my book, Business Presentation Revolution, which is coming out on July 14th, 2021, a very revolutionary date. So you did me the great honor of putting some blurb or an endorsement, which we've put on the front cover. So here's a first question for you. Can you remember what you wrote?
The business world needs leaders, and leaders need this book. Yeah, that's true.
That's right.
I agree with that. I wrote that.
You did write that. You did write that. And I'm very honored and frankly humbled to be having that on the cover, because this indeed, it is a book for leaders. It's a book for anyone who aspires to be a leader, because you can define a leader by their followers, right? Somebody who doesn't have followers is just somebody standing alone, right? A leader is not a manager or whatever. It's somebody that people want to follow. And you can't make people want to follow you if you're going to be never looking them in the eye and speaking with a monotonous, boring voice and basically not being properly prepared. So presentation is such an important skill for any leader. I always say any leader basically needs to master 3 things. One is vision. If you don't have a vision, then you shouldn't be leading anyone, because no one follows somebody who doesn't know where they're going. And I saw this really cool clip from Simon Sinek. I don't know whether you've seen this one, where he says that the CEO, the Chief Executive Officer, should be renamed Chief Vision Officer. And I really love that idea. But so a leader needs vision. They need to know where they're going and need to want to be able to get other people to go there with them. They need the emotional intelligence to be able to relate to people and understand where they are so that they can take them where they want to go. You can't take someone from A to B unless you start from where they are, unless you start from A. And to do that, you've got to understand the people. So you really do need those people skills. But the third and absolutely critical thing is you've got to be able to communicate. If you have a vision that you can't communicate clearly, if you can't make people want to follow you, well, then you're not going to get very far. So Business Presentation Revolution is a book for anybody who aspires to lead, who aspires to change what people believe and feel and do. And I firmly believe if you can change what people believe and feel and do, then there really is no limit to what you can achieve.
Yeah. So what else is in the book? I mean, it has a lot of the material that you also have in your seminars, right? So it's sort of like getting your seminar in book form. It could be like the notes, I guess, because you need a takeaway. People can still do your online learning or your live seminars, but then this is a nice takeaway.
Yeah, I mean, when we do our training courses, we already have a kind of a workbook that we give them, which is like a 50-odd page book or like an A4 booklet. But this is the kind of thing that you write and you scribble in, and it's got tables that you fill in, and it's got places where you put your Post-its, a bit like in your Presentation Zen notebook. Which I found really cool and which we still use. And so this is the kind of thing we give it to them as a PDF so that they can print it and use it several times. And that workbook is so useful. I mean, I've had people who've come back to me. I had a great story. I had a director at a bank. He was in one of my classes at HEC Paris, Europe's leading business school. Small advertisement there. He was in one of my classes back in 2019 before the pandemic hit. And at the end of the day, he basically we'd finished, and after they'd finished their round of applause and sat down, they gathered their books. He came up to me and he said, "So, Phil, do you recognize me?" And I said, "Well, yeah, you've been at the back of the room all day." And he said, "No. I mean, I was in your executive MBA class 8 years ago." And I was thinking, okay, sorry, I wish I did, but like you said, you have 100 students and they're in an amphitheater and you got several of those every year. You're not going to remember every single face, unfortunately, since I get to see them once. So no, I didn't remember his face, but he said, well, I remember you and I remember your workbook and I'm still using it 8 years later. And I said,
that's a
well,
great compliment.
and I said, well, hey, I'm glad you got the latest version now because it's so much better than it was 8 years ago. Because really what we've done over the last, in fact, 11 years since we started Ideas on Stage, we have evolved our methodology immensely to a point where we've now got a method that we call the presentation score method, or P-score, which helps to make every presentation simple, clear, original, related, and enjoyable. So those are the 5 success criteria. They make up the word score, or the acronym SCORE, and you put presentation before and you get the presentation score method, or, well, hey, P-score, because the presentation score method is a little bit long. And so that's the method we go through in the book. So the book is kind of like, it's not the workbook you would use during during the 1 or 2 or 3 day seminar, but it's the kind of thing that we'd leave behind, that we give to participants that they can read afterwards. So they got a lot more of the stories, a lot more of the examples. And in each chapter, it actually does have exercises to be done. So it's a very hands-on, practical book. And this actually was inspired to me by a wonderful lady called Alex Rister, who is based, or at least was, I haven't been in touch with her for several years now, but she was based in Orlando, I think, in Florida. And she was teaching presentation skills at college and was looking for a textbook, because they had a textbook, which was like a really old textbook, you know, the kind of thing that would have said 7 bullets per slide and stuff. And I remember exchanging with her several years ago, and she was saying, I was saying, why don't you use like Resonate, or why don't you use Presentation Zen? And she said, well, look, I love those books, but the faculty are kind of saying, well, they're not business focused enough. Now, I mean, one of the most popular posts on my blog was why presentation, I can't remember the title, why Presentation Zen. No, what was the title of the post? It was like, when you think you can't use Presentation Zen, that's when you need it most. Because the most boring subjects that you would think about, that's when you actually really need to go that extra mile to make it interesting and enjoyable for the audience. But Alex said, no, look, I'm really looking for a kind of a book which I can use as a class book, which has got exercises in it and which is really business focused. And so that was where I kind of got the idea of thinking, well, look, the world doesn't need another Presentation Zen. It's got a really good one already. It doesn't need another Slideology. It's got a really good one already. What it does need is a method-based business presentation book. And so that's where the business presentation came in the title.
Good. I like this. I love the orange and black and white. So we got three colors, very simple. You got the word business and business presentation. So that should be, you know, an easy sell for people. You know, if they're excited about the book, it's hard to get. Sometimes leaders don't. Well, I don't want to buy. Well, look, it's business. It's a business presentation book. All right.
So hopefully that will work, because I mean, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I feel quite bad about this, but I mean, I've given away over the last 11 years, I have given away more copies of Presentation Zen than I care to remember. And most of my clients love it, but some of them will say, but I can't give this to my boss because it's like, he'll think it's not serious. Why? It's like, because you've got these, like this beautiful cover with these wonderful like these wonderful like Zen type stones, etc. But it says Zen in the title and it doesn't look like a presentation book or like a business book. And it's like, sometimes, I mean, people, you can't judge a book by the cover, but too many people do. So maybe that person, maybe those kind of people were just not destined to like the book. But hey, you can't please everyone, huh?
Well, this cover, anyway, I think it's a great looking cover, and it's going to stick out because most books are not orange and black. But
that's like right. Most books are not orange and black. That's absolutely it. But then those have been our corporate colors ever since we started: orange, black, white, and a couple of shades of gray. And the logo on the front cover, which with the kind of this hand with the clicker that you kind of see over here as well, that was designed by Pierre Morsa. So Pierre, you know Pierre, Garr,
sure.
co-founded, I co-founded Ideas on Stage with him. It was his idea originally. And he is our chief designer, or creative cat, as he calls himself. And we were deliberating for a long time about what can we have on the cover. We need some kind of design, some kind of logo. And we went here, there, and everywhere with all sorts of things. And then just one day he just came up with, look, how about this? And we all just looked at it and thought, that's it. He's nailed it. It was nothing like any of the ideas any of us had had before, but he's nailed it.
Yeah, it seems very natural. I mean, it says a lot. There's a lot of. I mean, it looks like an Apple TV remote, but it's a generic remote, and it's the famous statue of the fist, and I mean, it's just great. It just has and it's simple and clean. Yeah.
It just works really well. I mean, Pierre is a fantastic designer, and indeed, it's not intended to look like any particular presentation remote out there. Although it's, if you look at the TED talk I did a couple of years back, I was using a clicker which actually, for the first time, which looked a little bit similar to that, not the same colors, didn't have the kind of the play type triangle on there, but it was it's a bit similar. So. It was actually quite interesting. I mean, one of my wonderful clients, I just ran the cover idea past her just a day or two ago. And she said to me, it's actually quite ironic that you're going to be selling this book to capitalists using something that looks like communist imagery.
That's true. Oh, gosh. Oh, man.
Which is interesting, but well, I mean, it's a revolution. And I guess this brings us to that third word of the title, which is revolution, because we really, really need to be changing so much about the way people present. It's terrible. I mean, do you ever get, because you teach like presentation skills to your students, do you ever get them saying, when are you going to train the other teachers? Does that ever happen?
I mean, it's a common problem, and still, your average teacher is certainly over 30. I mean, college professor, at least over 40 or so. And, we grow up in school seeing the death by PowerPoint. That's the way to use it. And then Microsoft hasn't really gone out of their way to try to tell people don't do that. Even though I've been invited into Microsoft, I mean, over 10 years ago, I'm speaking to the team there. But, it's an age-old problem, but that's great. That's a good opportunity for you. So, and for all the presentation designers out there and speech coaches and all of that, we still have a long way to go.
Absolutely. I had a question from one of the trainees I had just on Monday. Actually, we were just having a socially distanced lunch just outside our training room, and so he asked me. He said, "Phil," no, we weren't that far away, but he basically he asked me, look, if everybody joins the business presentation revolution and adopts these kind of methods and fixes their presentations and makes every presentation simple, clear, enjoyable, related, etc., won't you be out of business?
Right.
Will people still need a presentation specialist? And partly my aim is that indeed they don't need them. I had a client a few years ago. I think you met Steve Tongish, the guy he was at Aviva. He was vice president of marketing at Aviva. He was at your Presentation Zen seminar that we put on with you in London back in 2012. Remember that? That was a fantastic event. And Steve actually was also quoted in the Financial Times article together with you and me about it was Ian Sanders wrote this fantastic article, where the right medium is part of the message, I think it was something like that. And Nancy was quoted in that book, that article as well. But Steve was quoted there talking about how you can't get people on board with a set of bullet points. But I've been working with Steve like for 2 to 3 years, I think, on their annual client conferences, helping them to make sure all of the presentations were great, we were doing slides and things like that. And then a year came where he gave me a call, and he sounded a little bit sheepish, actually. I remember Steve on that call. Steve, if you're listening, hi, it's been a long time. But he said to me, I'm not sure how to say this, Phil, but I'm not sure we need you anymore. Because everybody's now trained, they know what makes a good presentation, and basically what they come up with works. So I don't think we actually need your help this year.
Yeah.
And I said, that's fantastic. That is amazing. That is, for me, the best success story I could have, when you
Sure.
no longer need my help. But then I would also go a little bit further and say, well, if every presentation ends up rhyming with communication and inspiration and motivation, and not the death by PowerPoint we see all the time, well, then it's going to be even so much harder to stand out. So when everybody's level is going up and everyone's getting better, you're still going to have to like really go an extra mile to stand out. So that's where, instead of doing a lot of putting lipstick on a pig or trying to like limit the damage that we sometimes do with presentation help, we can actually be really focusing on taking those who are already good and making them great. And I firmly believe that there will still be definitely a market for presentation specialists if and when everybody has joined the revolution.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I don't think there's any danger in job security. I mean, there are people being born, every day. So, the students I have now, they were just little kids when I first started, after I left Apple and then started the presentation thing. So, and they don't teach it in school.
No.
At least here in Japan. There's, I mean, I'm sure they have a little bit, but mostly it's all visual communication. Graphic design literacy is a new thing. So,
well, actually, it's starting in France, right? In France, the government has tried to make a change in the baccalaureate, which is kind of the top high school exam that you do when you're like 17, 18, just before you go off to college. And they've tried to bring in what they call le grand oral, right? Which is kind of the big talk. So this actually, it counts for quite a lot. And in fact, even at the my youngest son is going to be doing his brevet, which means it's like his middle school. It's at the age of 15 they have qualifications they need to do before they go up to the lycée, the highest school. And he's got an oral in that, and it counts for 100 marks out of 800. So he's got his maths exams, he's got his French exams, etc. But he's also got the oral, where he needs to give basically he needs to give a 5-minute presentation. So it actually is starting to be taught in schools. Is it being taught as well as it could be? Possibly not, because the government has pushed this through and hasn't actually necessarily given all of the teachers the training that they need. So one of the things that I'm actually doing now, and this was prompted by one of my clients who's got school-age children as well, is I have started a flipped classroom kind of class for school-age children, like 15 to 18. And we're doing a pilot group with just a small group of French kids. And I'm taking them through this 10-week program where they will learn how to prepare and deliver great presentations and how to succeed in these kind of exercises. And it's the kind of stuff that indeed they need to be learning at school, but they're probably not learning at school right now. And so every week there's going to be basically, there's a video they have to watch. There's a document they have to read. There's an exercise they have to do. And then on Sunday, we get together for an hour online and we discuss, and I answer their questions. And if they've prepared a pitch during the week, they deliver the pitch. And I'm really looking forward to seeing where this goes, because that could be really, really interesting. It's not a moneymaker. I'm doing it for free. But I really think that the young generation really need this.
Okay. All right. Sounds cool. Oh, wait a minute. You're the host here, so I'm not driving the show, but
you drive the show. I don't mind.
No. Time is 5:32. I have to run to the store before my kids get back and make dinner. So I realized we've gone over time, but how can we, final thing, what should I say? Should I say something so that you can,
what should we say? I don't know. Maybe you should say, well, now that, I mean, you should be buying Presentation Zen 3rd edition. That's for sure. I can say that. And then maybe you can say.
Yes. No, here we go. So this is the book. There it is. Business Presentation Revolution. Go out and buy 3 or 4 copies. Keep one for yourself. Give the rest to your boss or your friends. But I highly recommend the book. I actually have read it. It's on my desktop in PDF form. I can't wait to get the actual book.
Well, you'll definitely be getting a signed copy or 3 as soon as it's available, and it's going to be available in July. So publication date is July 14th. which is a very revolutionary date, particularly for us here in Europe. So July 14th in English, and then hopefully maybe some more languages coming along
Excellent.
soon.
Well, the two books look really nice. The bright orange and the bright sort of blue is a really nice contrast. So I was there with you guys in 2010, which I think your company had just started.
Yeah,
and you had
that's
asked
right.
me to speak in Paris. I can't, to me, that seems like yesterday. Yeah,
It
well,
is.
you've been doing a great job, and I'm really happy for your success. And I know the book's going to do great. So get out there and order that book, everybody.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Ideas on Stage podcast, there are many more you might like. So please subscribe, leave us a review, and tell us what you think. You can find many more ideas on business communication at ideasonstage.com or by searching for Ideas on Stage on iTunes, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening, and goodbye for now.